In this video, let's go ahead and make a barrel, a fun game asset. So I'm going to start with a cube and just simply drag it onto my grid. All right, I'm just going to put it in the center, and then in the top view, let's go ahead and create as many barrel panels as we need. So in my case, I was just thinking of maybe using 12. It seemed like a good number to make a nice round barrel. So what I did was I just scaled the boards to be just big enough to include a little space in between to add a little character to the barrel. So here I just simply quickly duplicated 12 of them and was pressing X on my keyboard to kind of snap them to the grid as I was dragging them out. And before combining them all, I wanted to create maybe a little more detail. So I realized that I need to combine them, and then just selecting the top faces, I was able to extrude the top, kind of the top side that's facing out. I don't really care about the inside part to be anything interesting, because later we're going to end up deleting it anyways. So just to make it a little more interesting than just a plain board, so that's what this is. And by the way, this also could make kind of a cool little looking fence as well. Here I'm just aligning the fence to the grid in some sort of way where I could use the cut tool to create cuts going across, because I'm going to need more topology when I try to actually bend the boards right into a barrel kind of a position. So I just gave myself some cuts by, if you just click outside and holding on the shift key, you can just drag right across. Next, I'm going to create the metal braces kind of that hold the boards together, right? So all of that I'm creating before I turn it into cylindrical shape. So that's what this is, just creating the metal braces. And I knew when I bend the barrel 180 degrees, I just need the metal parts to be a little bit out, right, so they can connect together. And again, this looks a lot like a fence, so maybe this is a cool way to quickly make a fence as well, if you ever needed to. Now I'm just combining the two metal shapes, and I'm going to create cuts also holding down the shift key in between each board. So that's going to also help me to bend the entire thing into 180 degrees, or a cylinder. Alright, here you see me combining all the pieces and just clearing my history. I do that once in a while just to keep things nice and efficient. I then ended up flipping the fence upside down so I can actually curve it into the form that I want it to be. And of course I realized I don't need the ends of the metal braces because they're not going to be seen. Alright, then I went to the deform modifier and just chose bend. And then if you select the bend, you can hold down the J key and change its position to vertical, and then go to, in the attribute editor, use the bend tab to curve it to what you need it to be. So in this case, I needed it to be just a little bit over 180 degrees to make sure they are touching sort of with the same spacing that all the other panels are spaced with. So I ended up going with, in my case, it's actually 182.5, I believe. Next, I just wanted to make sure that the braces are properly connected. So the easiest way was just manually select each point and just simply merge them to the center. So if you press the icon on the interface, you can just repeat the command by pressing G. So that's what I was doing. Then to jump to the spot you need to look at, I would select the vert and press F to make sure my camera zooms into the proper position so I could see. And then again, just press G to repeat the merge. Here I'm selecting all the verts and going to normals to kind of inflate the barrel so the spacing is not quite so large. I don't really want to see inside the barrel, but I do want to have some of those spaces, just a little bit. Alright, next I'm just going to flip it over vertically. And now I'm going to select the shape and go to deform and click on lettuce, and you can see my settings are 4, 4 by 4. Then if I switch to lettuce points, I can grab the middle points and just scale them out, creating kind of this flared effect. Once you're done, you can just delete the history, and that will sort of bake the shape into the geometry. Here I'm going to add a bevel to my metal braces just to make sure that the edges look a little softer. And I do realize that the braces are looking not very smooth and round. You could add more topology to it to make it a little smoother, but in my case I was sort of going for a stylistic look of kind of this blocky, low low poly look. So I was pretty happy with that, but you can of course make it smoother by subdividing it, or just simply inserting more edges in between, or even just beveling the edges. So there's many different approaches of smoothing out those corners in the braces, but I was going for a very specific look. So next I'm going to create the bottom and the top cap for the barrel. Just simply moving it into position and then pressing Control D, I will duplicate another one for the bottom. Alright, next I realized that I obviously don't need the inside geometry of the cap, so I'm going to select both of them, holding down the Shift key and pressing the isolate button. Then I'm going to go into my camera, my selection, and turn on camera based selection, so I can just drag just the selection around the middle pieces without selecting the back of my topology. So I do that here, and then I want to make sure that once I go into object mode that I uncheck camera based selection, because a lot of times if you leave it on, it will mess you up as you're modeling. So I like to leave it off when I don't need it. Next, I'm just gonna I combined all of the pieces into one shape. And let's go ahead and take a look at the UVs. So the first thing I'm gonna do, just for fun, is press the automatic UVs just to see what that would look like. And I wasn't pleased with that. I thought that was messy and definitely would give you a hard time in Substance Painter. So I decided to quickly do manual UVs next. So when I do manual UVs, I like to project my shape from the side so I can have kind of a pretty reference, just a personal preference. And to start, as the very first step, I'm just going to double click on the top and the bottom pieces and project them from the Y from the top. And once I go to my UV toolkit, I can unfold them, and of course I can stack them because the bottom and the top is identical, right? So they can overlap, and that's fine. Next, I'm going to select the braces, and again, just simply holding down the Shift key, you can double click on both. And I'm just going to also end up projecting them from the top, but I don't need the inside portion of my braces, so I actually deleted that first because no one will actually see the inside of the barrel. So once I projected it from the top, I just unfolded it, and I did attempt to stack them, but I didn't really feel like that was important, so I ended up just moving them side by side, but technically they could be and should be stacked. I didn't think it was important because most of my detail is going to be focused on the boards, and the metal braces I felt like were less important, so I kind of left them alone. And here you just see me selecting the external side of the board. Just holding down the Shift key, I'm just going around the entire barrel and just holding down the Alt and click, rotating the camera and just selecting all the pieces. Then I'm gonna hold down the Shift key and press a period on my keyboard to grow my selection, and I'm gonna do that a few times. You can see how the selection is getting larger, and I did that all the way until just the inside part is not selected. Then I'm just gonna project it from the very top and do unfold and do stack similar to stack them all in one pile, and that should work fine. Alright, here I'm just gonna attempt to select the whatever is left, the inside part, and just simply press delete. I don't need any of those polygons, because again, no one will ever see the inside of the barrel. Next, I just need to make sure that all these pieces are in the 1-to-1 UV grid. So I'm going to go to Layout and do Automatic Layout UVs. And once you do that, you could make it just a little bit prettier, just for the sake of you knowing that it looks nicer. So here you see me selecting all the shells and just placing them just a little better, and of course scaling them up to make sure that I take advantage of the full resolution in Substance Painter. And the top and bottom of the barrels, I left them alone. Ultimately, if you want to be a little more precise, you probably want to move the top and bottom barrel up and then overlap the metal braces. But I thought that was fine for what I'm doing. Alright, next I'm just going to grab the whole object and export it as OBJ file, and then jump into Substance Painter. Do a simple File New, then do I set my project settings to 2K, and I left the template as default. Next thing I like to do, personal preference, I just go to shadows and I turn them kind of low. I know they're there, but they're not interfering with the paint, and just turning on the anti-aliasing so I don't have jaggedy edges. And then do a quick bake, just simply setting it to 2K, and I'm setting the anti-aliasing to 2x2, just so maybe it's a little smoother. Nothing fancy, just pretty much all the default settings. And I'm just baking low to low, so I don't have a high version of this, so it's just pretty much just for the ambient occlusion. Alright, so once it's done baking, I just went to Smart Materials and just started grabbing kind of the first thing I see, and that was the chrome blue. Later I'm going to end up changing that, but I thought that made a pretty good color for the braces initially. And for the wood, I grabbed this wood chip that I believe I downloaded from the Substance source, so all these smart materials could be found there. If you guys don't see some of these, that should be part of the Substance Painter subscription. So you can grab any one of these, but I just grabbed the wood chip one that I thought kind of looked the way I wanted, but then I also wanted to try the walnut one because I wanted to see it a little darker. So I ended up throwing that over it, and honestly I thought that looked a little better. But here you just see me literally just playing with a couple different options and seeing what works. So first thing I did is I applied a black mask or a white mask to the braces, make sure that they don't overlap with the wood. And then you can see me here dragging the other wood over the other one and just seeing if I can kind of mix the two together, creating maybe even more detail than just one smart material was offering. I thought it was maybe interesting to see the combination of two of them, and I was pretty happy with the outcome. Sometimes it's fun to just experiment and just mix materials together, obviously, right, as an experiment. Alright, so here you see me grabbing the scratch steel instead of a smooth steel, and I wanted to give my steel, I actually went with the steel ruined and just created, I thought that maybe matched better stylistically to what I was trying to create. It's kind of like an old pirate barrel. So to me that made a little more sense and maybe looked matched a little better to the wood. Next you see me create a simple paint layer, and I was just simply creating I was trying to see if I wanted to use an alpha or just simply use a brush. So I ended up, you can see, just using a simple brush and just creating little bumps that would kind of be the sort of the bolts, right, that hold the brace and the wood together in the kind of a classic barrel design. And I did activate the symmetry, so it was pretty fast. So this already looked pretty nice, and maybe this would be a good stopping point if you're just creating something really simple. But I just wanted to see if I can add a few more details. So I ended up creating another layer, and if you hold on the let's see, what did I do next? Next I went to the generator and I grabbed some dirt. And initially I had all the color, height, roughness, and metal and normal map selected. So then in the base color, in the blending mode, I went to subtract and just kind of dialed it down. But then I realized I didn't really want all that extra detail, so I attempted to change the height of the normal map. Here you see me doing that, but I still didn't like the outcome of dirt being applied to all the maps, so I just left the dirt, as you could see, only on color. And again, just leaving it on subtract, and I set it to 75, as you can see. Next I wanted to add a little bluish tint to the metal braces, so that's what I'm attempting here, is to just give it like a little more blue instead of so gray looking. Alright, so I decided to do one more thing, which is I'm going to grab another fill layer, and holding down the Alt key you can just select just the color, and then you can add another generator and do a curvature. So this way you can select all the edges. Then in blending mode go to drop down. I went to drop down and I went to value and just change the lowered the value just so it's a little bit you could see the highlight of the edges a little bit, not too much. But the reason I set it to value is because I wanted the color to push through the edges. I didn't want white edges. I wanted to have kind of a color that matched, so that's the reason for that. So I set it really low to 11. And here you see me create another fill layer, and this time setting it to only height and normal. And you can see me indenting the height and attempting to create more detail on the wood. So initially I grabbed a random normal map or the height map, but you could see me erasing it here, and then I wasn't happy with it, so I went back into the height and actually typed in wood in the search box. And then as soon as I did that, I saw that wood 01, so I wanted to try that. I believe that's just the default alpha map in Substance Painter, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, if you rotate it to 90 degrees, I was able to adjust a couple settings and make it look to my liking. Because all the planks all the boards are overlapping, you know, you can't, you have to be careful about assigning detail to it, because it's gonna look very repetitive. But I did find a pattern that kind of made sense to me, so that this looked pretty good. And I like those lines that were created with the height map on top of the wood. I thought that was a nice extra touch, in addition to the smart materials. Here I just applied the mask to make sure that the wood texture or pattern wasn't overlaying the metal braces, so I just used the masking for that. Holding down the shift key, you can just drag the middle mouse button and change the lighting. And as the last step, I just wanted to brighten up the entire thing. It just felt a little too dark to me. So I changed the base color and simply went into iRay to do like a quick render to see what that might look like in the as a final in, like, you know, game engine or like a render. So alright, so that's my process. Just a fun little exercise to create a low poly game asset here in my Substance Painter. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, like, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.